The Toronto Raptors have made multiple moves here today, which gives the team some extra flexibility heading into this year's trade season, as well as gives more opportunities for some of the younger players that haven't been getting much run in recent weeks. But this also has serious implications on some of the contract situations for guys, particularly Jamison Battle, as he's a player that's currently on a two-way deal and is limited in terms of what he's able to play for the Toronto Raptors in terms of these restrictions for these two-way guys. So we're going to break down what this move does to set up the Toronto Raptors, flexibility going forward into trade season, what we can expect from the Toronto Raptors now with all of these rumors circulating with so many guys on the roster, and what the predictions are for Masai Ujiri's next move. So lots of stuff to break down in this video, but before we do, folks, again, if you guys are a part of the 67% of our viewers that haven't hit the subscribe button just yet, and you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on with this Toronto Raptors team, of course, with the trade deadline around the corner, and it being a pretty significant one, being year one of a rebuild, Masai Ujiri getting the most of some of our expiring contracts, some of the vets that have been around from the, previous, I don't want to say regime, but previous era Toronto Raptors basketball. Definitely hit that subscribe button if you want to stay up to date with everything that's going on. But let's dive into the news. Let's dive into the madness, as we do have, a couple things going on. So the first thing we're taking a look at, which I'm sure a lot of people have and probably saw coming, is there's official announcement forthcoming, but it appears that the Raptors have indeed waived Bruno Fernando, whose contract would have guaranteed on Tuesday. The expectation is Raptors will keep the roster spot open and use it on 10-day contracts in the short term. So this was then later made official by the organization, by Blake Murphy, by multiple different sources, but Michael Grange was the first guy to sort of jump on this and discuss stuff that's going down. Now, Bruno Fernando, of course, wasn't a guy that got a ton of opportunities or in a ton of run with the Toronto Raptors this year, as Bruno Fernando averaged 3 points per game, 3 rebounds, 1 assist, not a ton of minutes, but was a serviceable backup big man, especially while the Toronto Raptors were dealing with a ton of injuries at the start of the season. Of course, without Kelly Olynyk for a stretch of games, Jakob Poeltl's been in and out of the lineup, of course, so there hasn't been a ton of players that can reliably play the center position, and Bruno Fernando was one of those guys for the Toronto Raptors over the course of this year. So do want to give a little bit of credit, a little shout out to Bruno Fernando for being on the Toronto Raptors. Didn't complain, wasn't a head case, coming in off the bench of the Toronto Raptors, was that 15th spot at the end of the bench of the team, and there was some chatter, some buzz. There was some frustration by Raptors fans that he ended up getting that final roster spot, and I've seen some chatter circulate like, oh, what are we doing? Bruno Fernando, why did he eat up a roster spot from some younger guys that could potentially have an opportunity, like a Brandon Carlson or, of course, a Jamison Battle, who we'll get to in this video, who is on a two-way contract now. Why did we give that spot to Bruno Fernando? Well, the point was to do something like this. We knew that there were some injuries entering the season. They needed some front court depth, and the Raptors want to maintain their 10-day flexibility as they had last year, bringing in a lot of different players on 10-day contracts to see what you get, see if you can strike gold with one of those 10-day contracts, and he was on an unguaranteed contract, so basically, and it was summarized pretty well here by Blake Murphy, so for the Raptors, with this waiving, it does a few things. It gives an extra $1 million in breathing room under the luxury tax to take on money in a trade. Oh, there's open roster spots for trades, 10-day contracts between now and the deadline, and possibly space to convert, a 10-day contract like Jamison Battle to a standard NBA contract following this year's trade deadline. So this is a lot of things for the Toronto Raptors. Expect a lot more signings to be incoming now, particularly in 10-day contract deals, because, again, this opens up a lot more flexibility for the Toronto Raptors, waiving a Bruno Fernando to have different looks at guys out there off the bench for this Raptors roster. And to stay on the tangent I was on before, about the frustration about cutting a guy like Carlson, well, the Thunder actually waived Brandon Carlson today, and Carlson's deal would have become guaranteed for the year if he remained on the roster past today. It's a similar position to Bruno Fernando, but this gave the Thunder some flexibility, but the Raptors, 905, owns Carlson's G League rights, but is possible he ends up signing a two-way in Oklahoma City or elsewhere. So Carlson might be back within the Toronto Raptors organization, still might be back within our feeder system, which, of course, if there are more opportunities for roster spots, don't be shocked if this is a guy that ends up actually making his way back to the Toronto Raptors, at least with the 905. When it looked like he was robbed, he's picked up by the Oklahoma City Thunder, who were dealing with a ton of different injury situations, and starting off this year, Isaiah Hartenstein, and who's their other big man? I'm drawing a blank out there on the other big man out there in Oklahoma Chet, and I think Chet was healthy. Regardless, this is an OKC Thunder Digest. Go check out Thunder Digest if you want Thunder news. This is Raptors Digest here right now. But Masai Ujiri basically could get Brandon Carlson back in the mix. You open up more with Bruno Fernando. That's the direction that goes on. But the other thing that was brought up, and I'll bring this quote, this breakdown from Blake Murphy again. What this does, it ends up giving more of an opportunity for Jamison Battle to have his contract converted to a standard regular contract, because when you're on a two-way contract, you're limited in the number of games that you can play with the actual main roster until you have to be converted to a main deal. There's a limitation in terms of the actual run you can get with your team. You're supposedly split, between the G League, between the NBA roster. It's the point of the name of the two-way contract, and that's what Jamison Battle is on. And of course, he's been a staple in the rotation over the course of the Raptors season, especially with all the injuries we've had. And he's a rookie that's a high promising three-point shooter. So of course, you want him, especially in the back half of the season when the Raptors are, of course, they've been struggling. They have not been great this season. The capture the flag is the reality of what's going on for this Toronto Raptors team here now at this point. It's you want your rookies. You want your guys that have some high potential upside to be in a position where they can come out and get some actual run with the main roster. Of course, it's nice that he's getting extra reps in the G League, especially where Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, as well as Chris Boucher are going to get some extra run heading into the trade deadline to give them more opportunities to impress other teams around the NBA, so the Raptors can net some more draft capital, net some more assets in return for some of those guys. But after the trade deadline, that's the point when we can expect Jamison Battle's contract. If we don't get some crazy standout, insane two-way or 10-day contract guy, Jamison Battle, we can expect his two-way contract to eventually become a standard NBA contract so he can play the full out end to the season. So that's another thing that we can take a look at. We can expect, it's one of my predictions with what's going to happen in regards to this Raptors contract situation, but they did make a couple of other moves, and this makes sense in terms of what's been happening with this Raptors group, as essentially Jonathan Mobo as well as the two-ways are back with the Raptors 905 today. The NBA, the Raptors aren't practicing today, but some decisions ahead with both teams on the road, but expect more G League time now with the NBA club healthy. Mobo and the two-ways will be inactive on Wednesday versus the New York Knicks. Now, of course, I've been talking about how I've been disappointed in how Jonathan Mobo, who is a guy that is projected to be an actual player, future piece for this Raptors team. Just given his athleticism, his mobility, his feel for the game, it's still a bit raw as a basketball player, but his instincts are not raw. He's not one of those prospects who's just a raw athlete. We're hoping to turn him into a skilled basketball player. Jonathan Mobo is pretty skilled. He is skilled out there, but sometimes plays a little bit too fast for his own good. But he can pass. He has he's developing his jump shot. Jonathan Mobo's has some high upside for this Raptors team. And of course, being the 30th pick, he has some expectations in terms of actually being on this Toronto Raptors team a long time. So him just wasting away actual minutes on the bench during these games where he could be developing, he could be giving some opportunities. And frankly, he's been playing better, especially on the defensive end. Some of the forwards have been out on the court for the Toronto Raptors the course of the season. That just sucks. So seeing him actually be able to play the games, get some opportunities, especially as one of the top dogs out there with the Raptors 905, that is a positive, especially in the short term. Of course, following the trade deadline, I'd imagine Chris Boucher, Bruce Brown, even a Kelly Olynyk are likely to be at least discussed, dangled in trade conversations. So once those guys are gone, we could expect more opportunities, more run, more opportunities for Mobo out there at the start, or not the starting unit, but the main NBA roster for the Toronto Raptors. But until that time, expect him to be in the G League a ton, as kind of Blake Murphy pointed to there at that point. So, Jonathan Mobo is going to be there with the G League now at this point going forward. But we'll see how all these things play out. Again, the next month, expect a lot of 10-day contract signings. Expect a lot of rumors from names like Bruce Brown, Kelly Olynyk, Chris Boucher, and of course, we'll be here to update you on everything that's going on with this Toronto Raptors team. You guys best take us far. Subscribe to the channel if you don't want to miss a single thing that's going on with the Toronto Raptors. I'm signing out. Cheers.